Hello and welcome to my cake kitchen. In this video I'm going to be showing you how I made this 3-tiered cake set up for a milestone 60th birthday celebration. Interestingly, the inspiration for this cake began with a photo of the glass table over which the cake was eventually displayed. I'll be sharing more about that story as the video develops, but as always there were some challenges with this cake which I resolved as part of the decorating process, resulting in this magnificent showpiece. Additionally, I'll be bringing you behind the scenes, showing you more about the setup of this cake at the venue, and we'll be handing you practical tips about the decorating process and how to create a tiered cake like this one. So without having to waste your time, let's jump right in. To start with, the cakes were baked a day before and left to set on a countertop before they were torted, which is a cake decorating term for slicing the cakes into layers. And just before the cakes were sliced, I left them to chill in the fridge to set the layers firm for a couple of hours, which made the torting process easy. Without setting the cakes first, the crumb will be too delicate, making them prone to breaking during the torting process. Ensuring the cakes were sliced level top and evenly will aid a well-structured cake eventually. And for beginners, a good tip here is to use a cake leveler. I have an in-depth tutorial on leveling with a knife and also with a cake leveler, which will be linked in the description box for you. All the cake layers were brushed with vanilla flavored sugar syrup to enhance moisture, as I was going to be decorating the cakes over 48 hours. Adding sugar syrup ensures the cakes stay moist and do not dry out. The next phase of the decorating process is to fill and stack each tier of cake, starting with a 10-inch base tier that is filled with toffee flavored French buttercream and caramel. For these cakes, the caramel is a secondary filling, which is also a soft filling. Soft fillings like jam, curd and caramel do not hold firm in cakes and are to be filled into cakes carefully. To achieve best results, advisably a barrier has to be created to hold the filling in place so they do not cause a leak, which will in turn cause the cake to shift and slide during the filling and stacking process. This tier is made up of 3 layers, and after filling and stacking the 10-inch tier, the next is the 8-inch middle tier made up of 4 layers of cake. Filling takes the same form as the 10-inch cake and starts with a cake board held in place with ganache over a 12-inch cake board serving as the work surface. A dollop of ganache is placed over the 8-inch cake board and the first layer of cake is now placed firmly. Filling and stacking continues and any excess buttercream edging out from inside of the cake is scraped clean. To create a barrier for the soft caramel filling, an offset spatula is used to dig into the buttercream, creating a dam into which the caramel will be filled into. Worth noting, if you're a beginner, a barrier can be created by piping a border from inside the cake. And I have a tutorial showing you how to fill a cake 3 ways. It was a sunny day filling these cakes, so try as I may, the French buttercream which I was working with became slightly unstable. There was also a leak in the cake and the 6-inch top tier was beginning to slide and shift. Before doing anything else, it was wise for me to wrap these cakes in cling film to help them stabilize and maintain their form. These were then left to chill completely before the next step. Wrapping cakes before they are chilled ensures the cakes do not lose moisture and dry out during refrigeration. Using cling film for wrapping is equivalent to setting the cake layers in acetate wrap, which helps to steady the cakes and to keep form. Worth stressing, whilst these stages may seem laborious and taxing, these are the micro steps that will eventually support a beautifully presented, well-structured cake. And for this 3-tier cake, the goal was to avoid any structural issues as possible. The goal to create a structurally stable and straight standing cake remains a theme for this 3-tiered cake and any tiered cake, because any errors or mishaps will lead to a wonky or crooked looking cake when the cake is eventually set up. To achieve my goal for this cake, a few techniques are employed, starting with a 10-inch base tier that has to be crumb coated first to seal in all the crumbs created from trimming the cakes. While crumb coating, I also employed the double board method to ensure the cake is level and perfectly even on top. The double board method is similar to using ganache discs, where a board same diameter as the cake wrapped in plastic is placed on top of the cake to align with the bottom board on which the cake layers are placed. The top board is meticulously aligned with the bottom board, after which the cake is covered in ganache and scraped clean. The covering or coating of the cake in ganache takes the repetitive form of adding and taking out, whilst also filling in any unevenness on the cake until a polished look is achieved. Worth noting at this stage, the consistency of ganache is key to achieving great results, and the same process as employed for the 10-inch is employed for the 8-inch and 6-inch, which are now all set to chill before decorating continues. The chilled cakes are brought back for more coatings of ganache, and the 10-inch is covered in a layer of pale pink colored ganache, whilst the 8-inch is covered in plain white chocolate ganache. These coatings of ganache are aimed at achieving a polished look and even surface with the repetitive process of adding and scraping. For best results, using appropriate tools is a must, but for ganache to spread more evenly, dipping the metal scraper and offset spatula in warm water before use will aid a more polished look. The tops of both cakes are evenly polished, and the surface of the 8-inch cake is filled in slightly to finish it off for a rounded look. After the second covering of ganache, the cakes were chilled to set the ganache, and the 10 inches returned for another coating of ganache before it is stenciled. A good tip for stenciling is to ensure the cake is set solid after chilling and the stencil is secured properly in place on the cake surface before applying a layer of ganache or buttercream in very even motion. I have detailed tutorials on how to stencil a cake with more tips to help you achieve great results linked in the description box for you. The 8-inch is to be covered in more layers of ganache for a marble finish, which I will find challenging as the process develops, but in an attempt to achieve the marble effect, different colors of ganache was applied around the cake in layers before a scraper is employed to scrape away any excess. Both cakes are now left to chill again before the next phase of the decorating process. The 10-inch cake is returned, and the top board that was used to assist an evenly stacked cake is removed. A warm, sharp knife is used to clean out the top edges of the cake, and some ganache is spread on top to even out any unevenness. The ganache on top also ensures the color remains the same both on top of the cake and on the sides. This involves having to scrape the sides of the cake carefully to prevent scraping of the stencil detail. The 8-inch cake receives the same polishing touches, and after repetitive tasks of coating, scraping and polishing both the 8 and 10-inch cakes, the cakes are done. I recognize building a 3-tier cake is an advanced undertaking for any cake decorator, but in case you're a beginner wishing to learn more about the cake decorating process, I have completely beginner-friendly tutorials compiled as playlist to help you. So do check the description box for links and resources. In the meantime, let's move on to the next tasks in this cake decorating process. I'm setting up the cakes ready for doweling, and I'll be discussing the challenges I faced with the cakes shortly, including the issues with the top tier 6-inch cake, which was covered in fondant. But before that, it's perhaps good time to discuss the inspiration behind the cake, which came in the form of the photo on screen. The focus is the table on which the cake is displayed, and the cake you see on screen was not made by me. The 3-tier cake we're making now was ordered by an event planner and decorator that I work with on a regular basis, and she wanted a cake for her mum's 60th birthday. She contacted me initially with an idea we were discussing for a while, but that involved several other elements. In the course of our discussion though, she sent me this photo out of nowhere, which was no part of our initial consultation. She'd seen this cake display on this table, and while she wasn't keen on the cake itself, the table looked like something she wanted and wanted her mum's cake displayed on. She actually wanted the effect of an illusion such that when the cake is displayed on the table, being the top part of the table is glass and transparent, the gold part of the table will look as though it is keeping the cake afloat on top. Now that meant she had to go source the table, but besides the color of the theme, all she wanted was a cake to serve 100. Now for this cake, it may seem we have to work backwards with the idea of a display in mind, but that's no surprise to me, as inspiration and concepts for cakes could be derived from anywhere. With my job cut out for me, I have now managed to mark the dowels and cut them to the height of each cake and inserted them into the cake. But whilst doweling the cake, I now have a gushing crack caused by doweling the cake while it is cold. The dowels were also inserted too close to the side of the cake, causing the crack to happen. For this cake, dowels in the bottom and mid tiers serve to take on the weight of the towering cake above to ensure stability of the cake when it's tiered. I stacked the cakes despite the crack and had to stencil over the crack to cover it up, which was my best option as it was too late in the decorating process to do anything else. The reveal will come shortly when the cake is finally set up, but cracks weren't my only challenge throughout the decorating process. I had initially attempted to cover my 6-inch cake with some form of textured fondant by creating marks on the fondant first before covering, but I failed to achieve the covering that I wanted, so I changed my mind and covered the cake in plain white fondant. I then highlighted parts of the white covering with gold leaf so there is evenness in the theme color of pink, white and gold. With the cake sorted now, let's talk flowers, which were the main decorative elements made up of a sorted selection of fresh and artificial flowers. Decorations also included a custom-made personalized acrylic topper. The flowers were prepped to make them food safe by trimming and wrapping the stalks in floral tape, and this would be added onto the cake through a fondant ball serving as a barrier. I have a detailed tutorial on using flowers as decoration on a cake packed with tips, which I'll link in the description box for you. I also have some shorts videos discussing flowers with handy tips, all linked up in the description box, so do check those out. The bottom and mid tier were set up at home for trial arrangement of the flowers, and the cake was transported as a 2-tier cake with the top tier added on side. But before we get to work to setting up the cake on site, let's just catch a glimpse of the venue, which was beautifully decorated. Okay, so it's setup time, and stacking the cakes on site was a breeze, and that was because I had planned the setup and included a fixed kit. A good sign setup went well was the fact that I was able to film parts of the process, because if setup was stressful and chaotic, the last thing I would have wanted was a camera. But the venue was still busy and decorating the space was still ongoing, so worth noting that while setup was easy, the trouble of transporting any cake, including this one, on site was rather stressful. After what seems like a masterclass in making and decorating a 3-tier cake, our cake is all set up now, but there's more tutorials on screen for you to learn more about cake decorating. I'll see you in my next video. Thanks for watching.